So Bernie Sanders continues to be asked immensely stupid questions by mainstream media. Here he is on CBS. Pay attention to his reaction here. The best word I can come up with to describe what he's saying is flabbergasted. He's flabbergasted by the dumb question from the host.
You know, the president has now said that he wants his party to be the party of healthcare.
Well, I know.
Have you considered doing some version of this that you know would get some semblance of Republican support?
Well, right now, look, let's be clear. The president wants his party to be the party of healthcare. Unfortunately, apparently, what he means by that is throwing 32 million Americans off of the health insurance they have.
But isn't that what your plan would do, too? Because you'd be moving them into Medicare for all? I mean, if they have insurance right now...
Wait a minute, wait a second. President's plan and what he has supported throws 32 million people off of healthcare. No alternative. We provide healthcare to every man, woman, and child in this country. I think maybe slightly different concepts. We guarantee healthcare to all. He throws 32 million off of healthcare.
Off of the
slightly
Affordable Care
different.
Act.
Off of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
And they have no alternative. Probably in the recesses of their minds, their alternative is junk insurance, which means we're going to give you hey, Ed, we got a deal for you, man. We're going to give you really, really cheap insurance. Really a bargain. Oh, by the way, there's a huge deductible, there's a huge copayment, and it doesn't cover very much. But you know what? It's cheap.
We actually did a segment on this exact smear question that the media has asked Bernie about before. That's what this is. Make no mistake about it. It's a smear question. There's this misnomer out there that the media has a liberal bias. That's half true because they have a liberal bias on social issues. So in other words, corporations are totally cool with gay people and black people and all minorities and trans people, and they want to be as inclusive as possible. Why? Because those people buy products too. So mainstream media does have a liberal bias, but only on social issues. On economics, they're actually deeply conservative because they don't want to change the status quo, because the status quo is working perfectly for them. So really, the bias is a corporate bias in media. And here you see it. Because even, look at what the host even says about Trump. In the lead up to his question, he says, well, the president says he wants his party to be the party of healthcare now. Look at him uncritically parrot it. Like, oh, yeah, Trump, he wants to make this. So he's not like he's trying to help Trump, but that's the end goal, is helping Trump when you say shit like that. So you're letting President Dipshit get away with his branding con. And that's what it is, by the way. It is a branding con. It's, oh yeah, but we're going to be the party of healthcare. Well, what are the details, bro? You got to hit me with those. And somebody who's good in the media will give you the breakdown and will give you the details and say, well, hold on now. When you guys proposed your last healthcare bill, Trump Care, you know what the approval rating was among the American people? 12%. Basically, it's going back to everything we know doesn't work in healthcare. Privatized system, privatized, for-profit, middleman, bare bones plans where you pay a little bit of money, but it basically covers nothing, and then when something happens, you go fucking bankrupt. But again, the host uncritically is, well, Trump says he wants the Republicans to be the party of healthcare. And if you were good at your job, wouldn't you immediately say, well, we know that that's nonsense because here's why. Under Trump's time in office, 7 million people lost their health insurance. This is the guy who's going to claim like I'm a leader on the healthcare issue. Bitch, 7 million people lost their insurance under your administration because of your executive orders. What the fuck? You can't say that. That's the opposite of the reality. And then finally, we get to the core of it, which is, he seriously says, he doesn't think for a second that this is weird or gross or dumb or misleading. He says, well, Bernie, isn't that what you want? That's what the media people do. They go like this. Well, Bernie, isn't that what you want? No, asshole McGee, that's not what Bernie wants. Bernie's idea is actually adding on to the Affordable Care Act. See, what did the Affordable Care Act do? The Affordable Care Act added some new regulations to the for-profit health insurance companies, regulations which largely made sense, keeping kids can stay on until they're 26 years old under their parents' roles. The amount of money that goes into these insurance companies that is mandated by law to go to health care is now 80%. There used to be no rules around that, so you'd have, some health insurance companies paying 50% of their money going to overhead costs and only 50% going to actual health care. So it regulated the industry better. It expanded Medicaid, which was definitely a good thing, and it had the individual mandate, which forced you to buy from private health insurance companies. So you could say that was a step in the right direction from what we had before, because the outcomes were more people were covered, okay? And then there's an open question as to, with the price, how did that work in the long run? Did the price go up a little bit on average, go down a little bit on average? That's an empirical question that, honestly, I don't know the answer to, and I've never seen articles lay that out in detail. It could go either way. With many people, they did get a cut in the price, but I think in some places, in some markets in particular, in certain states, the price did go up. But nonetheless, it was a step in the right direction because more people were covered and the regulations made sense. What Bernie wants to do is take that ball and run it into the end zone and say, okay, think of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. What happens? Eventually, you grow your wings. Now, what would growing our wings be in this context? Having the for-profit health insurance companies no longer be the default, no longer be the unnecessary, rapacious, mafia-like middlemen that get rich off of other people's pain. So Bernie wants to actually add on to the Affordable Care Act and expand it and go to the ultimate answer, which is single-payer Medicare for all, which every other developed country has one version or another of. We end up paying less, covering everybody, and getting better health outcomes. So that's the answer. Now, by the way, you could also have supplemental private care within that system. That's part of Bernie's bill. So that's what Bernie wants, but look at how it's framed by the dumbass host. What does he say? Isn't that what you want, Bernie? You said Trump ultimately would kicked millions of people off of health insurance. Isn't that also what you want? Yeah, one guy wants to kick people off of health insurance and has no viable plan to give them real coverage. The other guy wants to give everybody real coverage where they save money and get better health outcomes. And by the way, dental is covered, and by the way, prescriptions are covered, so on and so forth. Isn't that the same thing? Aren't things that are on totally opposite ends of the political spectrum and the morality spectrum, aren't they really the same thing? In order to thrive in this media environment, in this corporate media environment, you have to be a dipshit. You do. I was just seeing the other day, there's apparently a feud going on with some of the mainstream media hosts. Chuck Todd and Chris Cuomo are sniping at each other. That is the lightest of lightweight fights I've ever seen in my life. That's Dumb and Dumber going at it right there. Human oatmeal, Chuck Todd. There's a reason why the people who have risen through the ranks in that system are Wolf Blitzer and Chuck Todd. Because they're looking for people who are dim bulbs, who will toe the line and not question authority too much. And that's how we're in the position that we're in today, where people have to come to YouTube to shows like this to get real news.